Hello, I am Jim Elizondo from Real World Ranching, where my goal is to help ranchers and farmers improve their land as quickly as possible while maximizing their profitability. Today, I'm going to talk to you about hair chip under total grazing. In my last total grazing course, I had many students from various parts of the world who asked if total grazing also applies to hair or wool chip. Some others have goats, but in this podcast, I am going to focus on hair chip. Around 20 to 25 years ago, I had up to 1,000 hair chip in a dry, tropical environment doing total grazing before I even knew that type of grazing had a name. My total grazing students know that we are looking for the highest harvest efficiency possible when grazing, and we typically achieve 80 to 90% harvest efficiency with cows. But I know that many people get scared when they hear this and they bring images of bare soil without protection and plants with short roots, what they call overgrazing. But in reality, total grazing is not overgrazing, but high efficiency harvesting. If we implement the total grazing program correctly, as described in the online course and detailed in the live Q&A sessions. Well, what I want to tell you in this podcast is that with hair chip, you can achieve even better harvest efficiency and a better leaf to stem ratio in the regrowth. Perhaps you keep imagining about the grass consumed all the way down and you believe that this harms the land. But I assure you that is not what happens. What we should visualize is the entire property throughout the year, with growing seasons, non-growing seasons, dry times, and all. When we know that in total grazing, one of our goals is precisely to avoid overgrazing to achieve deep and fat roots, we can feel relief. So what is actually overgrazing? It is regrazing a plant before it has fully recovered. And if we get higher harvesting efficiency by grazing, more chip days per acre harvested, then we see that we will advance slower in our rotation with our flock, instead of faster, like when we harvest only 30% of the available forage. So this longer rest before coming back to graze a field is what creates deep and fat roots that in turn feed better the microorganisms in the soil with the exudates created by the green leaves thanks to photosynthesis. As sheep can graze closer to the soil surface, consuming the grass stems along with the green leaves, more energy is available to produce more leaves per square yard. Why? Well, because the stems continue to consume energy by respiring, and removing the stems when grazing allows the production of more leaves in the regrowth, and if the roots are strong and fat from a longer rest period afforded by total grazing, the regrowth will be more vigorous. Now, many will say that by grazing lower down, the sheep will have more problems with internal parasites, but they do not consider that the rest periods with the total grazing program are longer and allow the parasite cycle to be broken. We must at the same time select our rams from mothers that are resistant to parasites in your environment. Also, I know that raising hair chip is easier in a dry environment precisely for this reason and to avoid hoof rot in humid environments. This means that with chip, we can do a better job of implementing the total grazing program than with cows. On my own farm, I was able to maintain 40 head of hair chip per acre at a low cost when with cows, I could not go beyond 2 cows per acre. This is with clay soil, common Bermuda grass, and irrigation at sea level in the high heat index tropics. Sheep, being animals smaller than cows, can achieve a higher consumption of grass for every 50 pounds of body weight. This gives them a great advantage in meat production per acre, as less of what they consume is devoted to maintenance and more can be used for production. They are also more prolific, and this allows a higher incidence of twin births. They have earlier precocity, as they can start lambing without problems at 1 year of age, while cows will calve for their first time at 2 or 3 years of age. So why not switch to sheep and ditch the beef cows? Well, because of the environment they require to make it easier. Profitability on paper is one thing, and profitability in the real world is another. There are many other factors that determine this. For the greatest success raising sheep, I recommend the following. First, you need to really like sheep. Then make sure before you start that the environment when they are going to graze is the right one. That is, high ground that does not flood or create muddy conditions, and that the climate or environment is dry. This is very important because they do not tolerate the humidity and high burden of internal parasites that proliferate in humid environments very well. In addition, you need to think about predators. You must have a good guard dog or a donkey, a jenny, that protects your sheep from predators. Also, electric fences for sheep should be better than for cows because they can get out more easily. To electrified mesh or electronet, we made it ourselves by weaving a net with polybraid, and it worked the best. And we could let them sleep in the same field in small pens done this way, so coyotes will not take them at night. If your farm is in an environment conducive to raising sheep, wool, or hair, it may be the animal species that gives the most money per acre if you are willing to dedicate your energy and time to that enterprise. It is best to learn as you go, but if you are in a hot and humid environment, I recommend that you use cows instead of sheep, as they have a much higher resistance to parasites and diseases than sheep. But regardless of the species you choose, sheep or cows, you will be able to achieve success by implementing the Total Grazing program, where the first year you should be able to double your stocking rate, thanks to a better harvest efficiency compared to selective rotational grazing. You will also be able to reduce your hay costs in the winter or dry season by deferring entire fields to total graze them in those seasons. So these two things together, the highest number of productive animals per year kept at a low cost, are what will allow you to maximize your profitability while improving your land the fastest. Okay, conclusion and summary. 1. Sheep have a higher voluntary consumption of grass per pound of live weight than cows. This allows them to produce more pounds of meat per acre. 2. Sheep can achieve a better harvest efficiency than cows, so that makes them ideal for the Total Grazing program, since this program also allows breaking the cycle of internal parasites much better due to the longer rest periods that we use to obtain deep and fat roots. 3. They are more precocious and can lamb for their first time at 1 year of age, and they are also prolific. That is, they can give up to 2 offspring per year. 4. They do require a dry climate or environment, as they are prone to foot rot and internal parasites that are prevalent in hot and humid climates. The ideal is a dry and hot climate for hair sheep and dry and cool or cold for wool sheep. It is very important to select your herd so that parasite and disease-resistant animals predominate, as this will make your job much easier. 5, as they are smaller animals, they need guardian animals and care to minimize losses to predators. Sheep really have the potential for higher returns per farm or ranch in the right environment for them if you are willing to invest your time and energy in them. They can also improve your land faster, and you can increase your flock faster. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Until then, Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube, or join us for our weekly email at www.rwranching.com/join. See you soon.